Look at your kitchen. The modern pantry is an illusion of security, a psychological safety blanket built on a foundational lie. We've been conditioned to measure safety purely in volume. We buy bulk rice, stacks of dry pasta, bags of flour, and shelves of canned raw ingredients, tracking our survival window in weeks or months. It feels calculated, it feels rational, but it's completely hollow. The brutal paradox of modern civil protection is that a full pantry does not mean you're prepared for an emergency. In fact, for the vast majority of households, a packed kitchen is nothing more than an expensive inventory of useless weight when a real crisis hits. There is one specific structural reason for this failure. Almost everything sitting in the average kitchen requires an external utility input to become actual bioavailable food. It requires a transformation process. That process dictates a reliable source of high heat, a functional gas line, a stable electrical grid, or pressurized municipal running water. Now look at how disasters actually behave. Look at the data from every major infrastructure failure over the last 30 years. From severe winter grid collapses to sudden cyber attacks on municipal systems, heat, electricity, and running water are not secondary casualties of a crisis. They are the exact systems that disasters neutralize first. The moment the grid drops or the water pressure bottoms out, your kitchen is instantly transformed into a museum of raw materials. You cannot boil the rice, you cannot hydrate the beans, you cannot bake the flour. You are sitting on 50 pounds of carbohydrates that are functionally as useless as gravel, while your body burns through its remaining glycogen reserves. This creates a devastating psychological trap known as the preparedness illusion. When individuals believe they are safe, their cognitive adaptability drops to zero. They stop looking for alternatives. They stop planning. Then the automated systems fail, the lights go dark, and the sudden realization hits. You are starving in a room surrounded by food. It's a quiet, desperate catastrophe that happens behind closed doors long before the grocery store shelves are fully stripped bare. The physical reality of human biology under acute stress makes this problem immediate and severe. During a crisis, your body isn't operating at its baseline metabolic rate. Cortisol spikes, adrenaline floods your system, and your caloric expenditure climbs significantly just from the mental and physical toll of navigating a broken environment. You need high-efficiency, easily digestible nutrients immediately. Yet, the average person's emergency plan relies on the assumption that they will have the luxury of time, safety, and a functioning heat source to prepare a meal. It is an extraordinary gamble, and the mechanical math of infrastructure is heavily stacked against you. Municipal water pumps rely on the electrical grid. When the power dies, the taps follow shortly after. Natural gas lines frequently shut down automatically during seismic or severe weather events due to automated safety valves. If your survival strategy requires any of these three pillars to remain intact, you haven't built a survival plan. You've built a dependency. This narrative is an analytical teardown of that gamble. We are bypassing the standard survivalist rhetoric, the overpriced tactical gear, and the military-grade marketing. Instead, we are focusing on 12 specific, highly dense foods that completely bypass the infrastructure trap. These are items that require absolutely no heat, no electricity, no running water, and zero specialized equipment. You do not need a stove. You do not need a generator. You do not even need a tool as simple as a mechanical can opener. You open the packaging and you eat. They provide immediate, unconditioned nutrition. What makes this baseline strategy bizarre is that almost every single one of these items is sitting right now at your local regular grocery store, usually for just a couple of dollars. Yet, the vast majority of people building emergency stockpiles right now are bypassing these logistical lifelines in favor of bulky freeze-dried buckets or raw staples that will require a fully functional kitchen to process when the world goes sideways. We are going to break down all 12 items, counting them down by their operational utility, their nutritional density, and their psychological impact during a prolonged crisis. The item taking the #1 spot is almost certainly sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now. But the structural reason it tops this list is something most people have never considered. It isn't just about calories or shelf life. It's about a hidden cognitive mechanism that matters far more than you expect when the baseline of normal life dissolves. Let's strip away the assumptions, end the reliance on a fragile grid, and look at the raw mechanics of survival nutrition. The vulnerability of the modern food supply chain is not a theoretical hazard. It is an engineered geographic and logistical trap. To understand why the average household is completely unprepared for an infrastructure collapse, we have to trace the deliberate consolidation of food distribution networks over the past 40 years. Historically, communities maintained local agricultural buffers and decentralized warehousing. However, the introduction of just-in-time logistics in the late 20th century fundamentally reconfigured the global food infrastructure. Under this economic model, supermarkets no longer maintain backroom inventory. Warehousing has been outsourced to rolling distribution trucks governed by automated algorithmic demands. Statistical data from the logistical sector confirms that the average metropolitan supermarket carries exactly 3 days of food supply on its shelves. In high-density urban corridors, this window drops to less than 36 hours. The geographic trap lies in the extreme centralization of distribution centers. In the United States, for instance, a massive percentage of shelf-stable goods passes through highly concentrated logistical hubs in states like Ohio, Illinois, and Texas. If a major winter storm, a systemic cyber attack, or a regional grid failure neutralizes even 2 of these primary distribution nodes, the supply chain dries up downstream within 48 hours. The historical precedent for this vulnerability was explicitly demonstrated during major natural disasters. When Hurricane Sandy struck the northeastern United States, the physical destruction of electrical substations instantly paralyzed regional distribution networks. Supermarkets possessed inventory, but automated checkout systems, electronic temperature controls for refrigeration, and motorized security shutters were completely non-functional. Citizens with financial means flooded the stores, but without electricity, transactions could not be processed. This exposed the ultimate paradox of modern consumerism. The food was physically present, but structurally inaccessible. Furthermore, historical data regarding municipal water systems reveals a similar compounding vulnerability. During the severe Texas power grid failure, cold temperatures caused widespread power outages that cut electricity to water treatment facilities. Consequently, over 13 million people lost access to clean running water. Those who had stockpiled raw emergency rations, such as dry rice and pinto beans, suddenly faced a secondary crisis. Preparing these foods requires significant volumes of clean water for boiling. Utilizing scarce bottled water reserves to hydrate dry legumes is a mathematically losing strategy for survival, as it accelerates the depletion of critical hydration assets. This brings us to the operational analysis of our countdown items, specifically evaluating how they perform when these historical vulnerabilities manifest. We begin at the foundation with item number 12, Meals Ready to Eat, MREs. Developed by the military to sustain combat operations in zero-infrastructure environments, MREs represent the absolute baseline of institutional emergency nutrition. They are engineered to endure extreme mechanical shock and temperature fluctuations, ranging from sub-zero winters to blistering summer vehicle storage. Each pouch contains a complete meal with an average of 1,200 calories, specifically balanced with heavy fats, proteins, and carbohydrates to sustain high-exertion activity. However, relying on MREs as the primary foundation of a civilian stockpile is a strategic error. The unit cost of genuine military-grade or high-tier civilian MREs is remarkably high, often leading individuals to underpurchase, creating an insufficient supply. Additionally, they are highly dense and contain chemical preservatives designed to deliberately slow digestion, which can cause severe gastrointestinal distress under prolonged usage without high physical exertion. Therefore, logistical experts categorize MREs not as a primary food source, but as a tertiary safety net, the final barrier against starvation when all other decentralized grocery assets are exhausted. Moving to item number 11. Flour and whole wheat tortillas present a superior alternative to traditional bread products. Bread is the most common panic buy item recorded by supermarket tracking data prior to severe weather events. Yet, from a logistical standpoint, standard bread is an exceptionally fragile asset. It possesses high moisture content, rendering it highly susceptible to mold within days of opening without climate control. It occupies massive physical volume relative to its caloric density and it crushes easily under pressure during transport or evacuation. Tortillas reverse every single one of these structural flaws. Due to their flat profile and compressed manufacturing process, they pack with extreme spatial efficiency. Vacuum-sealed commercial flour tortillas remain completely stable at room temperature for weeks, and often months, beyond their stamped expiration dates. From a functional perspective, they serve as a durable, edible platform for other stockpile components. They require no plates, knives, or clean surfaces. In an active evacuation scenario, wrapping high-density proteins inside a tortilla allows for single-handed consumption, while in motion, preserving mobility and minimizing cleanup requirements. Tip number 10, canned soup, introduces the critical element of unconditional access. A significant percentage of civilian emergency stockpiles consists of standard metal cans that require a manual mechanical can opener. Historical disaster response reports indicate that tools are among the first items lost, misplaced, or broken during rapid evacuations. If an emergency food supply relies on a separate physical tool for access, that supply is conditional. Canned soups featuring integrated pull-tab lids eliminate this single point of failure entirely. While consumer habits dictate that soup must be consumed hot, the commercial canning process involves high-heat sterilization that fully cooks the contents inside the sealed environment. Consequently, canned soup is entirely safe to consume cold, straight from the container. It provides immediate sodium, carbohydrates, and protein without requiring a single watt of electricity or a single spark of flame. More importantly, the liquid broth within the can functions as an ancillary hydration source, slowing the depletion of your primary potable water reserves. This mechanical synergy between food form and hydration management is what separates an amateur stockpile from a resilient, structurally sound survival system. The operational reality of a long-term grid failure shifts the crisis from a logistics problem to a physiological challenge. As an emergency progresses past the 48-hour mark, human biology reacts predictably to sustained stress. The human nervous system remains locked in a high alert state, accelerating metabolic demand and depleting micronutrient reserves far faster than under normal conditions. This brings us to item number 9 on our countdown: canned fruit. Standard emergency management manuals frequently categorize canned fruits as luxury comfort items, a designation that ignores their specific chemical and physical utility in a resource-depleted environment. A rigorous data analysis of commercial canned fruit reveals two critical assets: rapid-acting simple carbohydrates and stored liquid. In situations where physical exertion is mandatory, such as clearing debris, securing structures, or traveling on foot, the natural sugars in peaches, pears, and mandarin oranges provide immediate, easily absorbable energy without demanding heavy digestive processing from an already stressed body. Furthermore, the packing liquid, whether light syrup or natural juice, represents a completely sterile, sealed source of hydration and electrolytes. When municipal water systems fail and secondary contamination risks rise, the fluid inside a can of fruit is a vital asset that mitigates dehydration. Tip number 8, crackers, addresses the critical issue of caloric delivery and food format. In a prolonged crisis, psychological fatigue manifests as appetite suppression or a rejection of repetitive food textures. This behavioral phenomenon can cause individuals to consume fewer calories than their daily output requires. Crackers, particularly whole wheat or high-fiber varieties, serve as a dry, stable structural vehicle for high-density proteins. While eating a pouch of tuna or a spoonful of canned meat directly can feel intensely transactional, spreading it onto a crisp cracker mimics the mechanics of a normal meal. This preservation of standard eating habits stabilizes morale and ensures that household members, especially children, maintain their required caloric intake. Logistically, sealed cracker sleeves are highly lightweight, require zero preparation, and maintain chemical stability for up to a year when stored away from direct sunlight. Item number 7, instant oats, represents one of the most misunderstood assets in modern pantry planning. The vast majority of consumer instructions specify that oats must be prepared using boiling water or microwave radiation. This universal assumption causes thousands of households to exclude oats from their no-cook emergency reserves. However, food science data confirms that the commercial manufacturing of instant oats involves pre-steaming and dehydrating the grain. Consequently, instant oats do not require heat to become digestible. They can be fully rehydrated through a process called cold soaking. By mixing instant oats with room temperature water or even the juices salvaged from canned fruits, the grain softens completely within 15 minutes. The resulting meal is exceptionally rich in soluble fiber, which stabilizes blood glucose levels and prevents the sharp energy crashes associated with pure sugar or simple carbohydrate consumption. Element number 6, nuts. Provides the highest density of healthy fats and trace minerals available in the standard grocery aisle. In an active crisis, individuals frequently over-index on carbohydrates while neglecting lipid intake. This is a severe biological miscalculation. Fats are essential for sustained hormone production, cellular repair, and long-term energy reserves. A single 100-gram serving of almonds, walnuts, or cashews delivers roughly 600 calories alongside significant percentages of magnesium and potassium. These two specific minerals are critical because physical trauma and emotional stress cause the human body to excrete electrolytes at an accelerated rate. Depleted magnesium levels lead to muscle cramping, cognitive fog, and degraded sleep quality, all of which directly impair critical decision-making capacity during an emergency. Sealed commercial nut packages require zero climate control, possess a minimal physical footprint, and can be easily distributed into individual pockets for mobile consumption. Number 5. Protein bars represents the ultimate operational tool for dynamic, fast-moving scenarios. There is a distinct phase in every major civil emergency where stationary sheltering becomes impossible. Whether due to mandatory evacuation orders, rising floodwaters, or structural fires, individuals are routinely forced out of their homes and into motion. In these high-friction environments, opening cans or cold-soaking grains is completely unfeasible. A high-quality protein bar delivers up to 20 grams of complete protein and 300 calories in a form factor identical to a human palm. It requires no utensils, creates no odor that might attract unwanted attention in a crowded shelter, and can be consumed entirely while walking or driving. It functions primarily as a cognitive stabilizer, keeping blood sugar levels consistent so that the individual can process complex, life-saving information without the debilitating interferences of physical exhaustion. Number 4. Jerky. Introduces ancient preservation mechanics into the modern urban environment. Dried meats, whether beef, turkey, or venison, represent the absolute pinnacle of stable, complete animal protein storage. Because the moisture content has been mechanically reduced below the threshold required for bacterial growth, jerky remains viable at room temperature for up to a year without any artificial chemical preservatives. It delivers all 9 essential amino acids required to prevent muscle wasting under sustained physical duress. However, an objective analysis of jerky highlights a major secondary dependency: its extreme sodium content. Salt is fundamentally required to cure the meat and ensure shelf stability. When an individual consumes significant quantities of jerky, the high sodium concentration in the bloodstream triggers an immediate cellular demand for water to maintain osmotic balance. If your emergency plan involves heavy reliance on dried meats but lacks a proportional dedicated water reserve, you are actively accelerating your own dehydration timeline. Every gram of jerky must be mathematically cross-referenced with your available fluid assets. Survival nutrition is a balancing act of inputs and outputs. Ignoring the structural relationship between food form and water consumption is the exact point where standard civilian stockpiles fail under real-world pressure.